So
Yeah.
you are Orthodox. Did you grow up Orthodox, or your parents Orthodox?
No. No, my parents on both sides were probably about 4 generations Seventh-day Adventist, and they were leaving that church when I was probably 8 or 9, I would say, and they, they were serious about their faith, really, integritous, pious people. So we would continue to have a lot of prayer time as a family. When they left the Seventh-day Adventist Church, there wasn't a sense of, this doesn't mean anything to us anymore. It seemed like it was still very important, but we didn't really have a church to go to. It was just, we're leaving this. We don't really know where we're going. And so when we were in Los Angeles, I was about 11, and we didn't really attend a church for most of my teenage years. I remember when I was 14, it sounds like one of those old stories you'd hear, walking 2 miles in the snow to church, but there was no snow. It was Burbank. However, I do remember walking a couple miles to the closest church because I just wanted to be around other people of faith, and we didn't really have that. Now, my dad, and this will give my age away. My dad would give us cassette tapes from a couple different preachers, because he knew we weren't going to church. We didn't know what church to go to, so he would give us cassette tapes from a couple people, and one of them was an Australian preacher named Dr. Desmond Ford, and we would listen to those, almost every night. It became a routine that my brother and I would just listen to these. And I remember one night was very different than all the others. I was probably just 12 years old, and his talk was on the holiness of God and the pride of the human heart, and how impossible it is to please God, or I guess impress God with our supposed righteousness. And I was only 12, but something happened. I was really kind of cut to the heart, and I realized that I was very far from God somehow. And I don't know. It just that I'll never forget that moment, because it changed the trajectory of everything. So, when I was working in Hollywood, I was on General Hospital, but all of a sudden everything was different. I had this kind of deep wounding inside of me, and a longing to understand what life was about, I guess.
So would you say did that move you to try to get closer to God? Or, yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Very much so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a paradoxical thing, it was kind of like a simultaneous revelation of how far away I was from God, in a very genuine way. I mean, it was kind of almost shocking. But the simultaneous revelation was this overwhelming sense that I was loved. And so both of those things happened at the same time. And so I started to read the scriptures, like Matthew 5 and 6 in particular was really important. If your righteousness does not exceed that of the Pharisees, those kinds of things. If you say, you fool, to someone, that's like murder in the eyes of the law. If you look at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. And it was like the standard, the beauty, the height, I guess, of holiness was just so incredible that I just felt absolutely useless and weak, and and in that very moment, that was the moment where I felt like something inside me said, that's exactly how I want you to feel. That's exactly how I want you to feel, so that you can, understand grace. And then the Last Judgment, that was the other one I remember. It was like, I must have been reading Matthew, because those are the ones that I remember. But yeah, I mean, that just, it was incredible to me. So, yeah, it was like the beginnings of the whole paradox thing. Even long before orthodoxy entered the picture, it was, it was there.
Absolutely. That's neat. But I think that that's how it has to be in a sense, right? Because we really have to have the humility and that understanding that there is something else to reach for. And you need both of those at the same time to be able to get started on that journey. So thank God
Yeah,
and you were young to come to
it's
that.
very,
Really, that's
yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So,
I think I was just going to say, in terms of how young I was, I think it was almost a necessity thing, because I was in Hollywood, and it is a very intense spiritual environment. And so as I look back, I've thought about that, and I have a sense that I needed that miracle to happen in my soul at a very young age to, you know, um, kind of get a hold of me, because the wave, the sort of tsunami of that place is intense.
mhm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I've spoken to people before, and I think there's an assumption that it's very hard to be Christian in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, outside of Hollywood. And then when I've spoken to people who are Orthodox in Hollywood, often they'll say, actually, Hollywood is a very spiritual place, and it's very open to a lot of kinds of spirituality. So on the one hand, there's a temptation to just, be drawn away into some other kind of spirituality. But at the same time, people are fairly respectful of a person's faith when they see something, when they see that it's very important to you and that it means something to you. Is that your experience, or what do you think?
I think it's a bit of both. I would say on a personal level, people are very respectful, and kind of open. Um, it is a lot of people there, are very into Buddhism or New Age, that kind of stuff. So um, I mean, Christianity, generally speaking, and when people in America and in Hollywood think of Christianity, they don't really think of Orthodox Christianity. They think of primarily, evangelical, Protestant, and Catholic, Roman Catholic Christianity. So, um, yeah, I mean, I would say on a personal level, people are fairly respectful, but there is a very intense uh, rub when it comes to if you don't want to go along with certain things in your career. If you don't want to, if certain power entities are leaning on you to do X, Y, or Z, and you don't want to do that,
Mm-hmm.
primarily because of your faith, that can cause serious problems. So it's a little bit of both.
That makes sense. Well, and it's
Yeah,
interesting too, right? There's sort of the industry pressure, and then there's the personal relationships, and they're not
yeah,
always aligned. Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely,
that's true. Yeah.
absolutely.